Before I start this tier list, I want to go over a few sort of ground rules. For starters, this is a console tier list, and this will affect at least one killer's rating. Also, I'm allowing up to green add-ons only, no purple and no iridescent add-ons. Green add-ons you can bring almost every game, so I think it's fair to allow killers green add-ons. Any perks allowed, so you can have, let's say, Oni with his best build, Corrupt, Monitor, Infectious Barbecue, and you can have a Duration add-on and Sculpt Top Knot. I'll be ranking killers based on a skill level of realism, so these absolute god blights will not be on the tier list. These things that we haven't even seen yet, I'm not going to put that in a tier list because that's just unrealistic. As for survivor skill, I'm going to say it's 4 decent survivors. None of them are necessarily bad, they're all decent engineers and they can all loop fairly well. I'm going to be saying an average map, so something like Coal Tower or Wreckers Yard or maybe Thompson House, Azarov, something like that. Nothing like Red Forest. Larry's, we'll just rule those out for for simplicity. Otherwise, Myers would probably be higher than Hunters, which isn't really true. Alright, starting off with a D tier and the worst killer in the game, I think it's probably Pig. Now, I'd say Pig will probably flip-flop with Trapper, but for the average map I've chosen, I think Trapper's probably better on them, but I would definitely rather play Pig on an indoor map or something like that. But for the average map, I'd say Pig is probably the worst killer in the game. But why is Pig the worst killer in the game? Starting with her traps can barely save you time. Traps, you get 4 of them base, but here's the thing about traps. You could put a trap in someone, hook them, they could get unhooked, run to a box that's like 5 seconds away, spend like 10 seconds getting it off, and then you've bought yourself about 15 seconds. One of your 4 traps have bought you like 15 seconds. That is literally nothing. Now, if all 4 survivors get fairly lucky, get them off in the first 1 or 2 times, you will buy yourself no time. And that is really bad. You also have your dash, which is incredibly easy to play around as a survivor. There are very few loops in which the survivor is forced to play with your dash, and even then they can still counter it. For starters, if survivors are in a high pallet area and you crouch go for a dash, they can simply leave the loop and go to a different one, and you will not make it. Even if you like fake it and immediately get back up, they will gain so much distance, so you will not be able to catch up before they make it to another loop. The dash also doesn't work at longer loops. Loops where you can see the killer, it doesn't work there. It works very well in those rock loops that you get on Macmillan and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure you still get them in yeah, you still get them in Auto Heaven. Those are pretty good because they're not too big and you can't see the killer, but even then, that's a 50-50. And if the survivor guesses right, they can just like stun you with a pallet. So her dash really isn't good at all. It's probably like the worst anti-loop power in the game. It's considered anti-loop. She's also got terrible slowdown, and her stealth is not worth it. Killers can barely waste any time as it is, so going down and crouching and moving incredibly slow, you cannot do as Pig. You can maybe use it a couple of times per game, but you can't be walking around crouched. So in conclusion, Pig has terrible anti-loop, inconsistent slowdown, and really nothing to help her at all winning against decent survivors. Next is Trapper. Trapper is really bad. He's inconsistent as shit. On a good day, Trapper will seem like an actual pretty strong killer, but for most games, like 95% of your games, you will regret playing him immediately. You start the game, you have to walk over, set a trap, walk over here, pick up a trap, walk over there, set a trap. You waste like a minute at the start of the game just picking up and setting down traps. It literally takes about 45 seconds to put down about 3 traps. That's insane. That is absolutely mental. Survivors can easily do like 1 or 2 generators. You'll go set a couple of traps, and then you'll go chase the survivor. They won't be near your traps, and then you'll chase them for a bit, and you're gonna lose at least 2 generators in your first chase. At least 2 generators in your first chase, if not 3. And you're just gonna repeat this and hope you get lucky. and they step in your traps, because you can't force survivors. You can sort of influence them, but you cannot force a survivor to go to a trap loop. If a survivor knows a loop is trapped, they won't go to it. If they saw you place a trap, they will disarm it. And they might just get lucky and not go to a loop that's trapped. And this is really bad for Trapper, because you can literally get a couple of traps per game. On a good game as Trapper, you might get 5 traps. 3 of those traps might be completely useless to you because they got trapped while you were chasing someone else, while you were hooking someone. They stepped in across the map and you can't get to them. They could get lucky and get out in their first try. They can still do that. Trapper is really, really bad, but he can get lucky. Like, you could have someone hooked, someone can step in a trap, you can down them, another guy steps in a trap, you down him, and then you can just snowball off that. If you get people in the basement, you can play really nasty, but other than that, Trapper's just weak. He's just bad. He's poorly designed, and he does not work today because killers have no time to waste, and Trapper just wastes so much time. Barely anything to help him in the chase, unless he gets lucky, and he has to waste so much time setting up his power that it's just not worth it. Next is Clown. Clown just got his rework, and he is still shit. Cloud is not good at all. His anti-loop is still not very good, and that's all he has. These balls do not provide extra mobility, because if you run around the map throwing these balls to try and get the generators faster, what's going to happen is you're going to get to that generator 3 seconds faster than you normally would, but you're going to only have 1 ball. You can't do that. His anti-loop is still the same. It still just consists of a survivor running into a loop, dropping the pallet early, and volleying back and forth until you break the pallet and they get to another one. His yellow balls do not fix this. They are virtually useless, as I said in that other video. I've still yet to get actual value from them. The only real buff he got was the shortened reload time, and that's not much. Clown's issue wasn't his reload, it was one of them, but Clown's core issue is that he's an anti-loop killer without a good anti-loop power. He's like Death Singer, but he can't actually get you in the chase. Starting C tier is Myers. Myers is pretty weak as well. The only sort of strengths I see in Myers are his short terror radius. If you run Modern Abuse, you have an 8-meter terror radius in tier 2. If survivors of Spine Chill, this doesn't really work, but at the same time, it is nice to have. The problem with Myers is similar to Trapper. Your early game is horrible. You have to start off by stalking survivors. Decent survivors, which we are saying we are go against, will keep you trapped in tier 1 for at least the first 30 seconds of the match. And that's really bad for you. And when you do tier up, you're now just a regular killer. And then when you get tier 3, you have an insta-down and extended lunge and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, a decent survivor will still be able to loop a tier 3 Myers for a solid amount of time before going down. You will still get looped, and survivors can sort of just stealth out. You know, you pop tier 3, down a survivor in, say, 30 seconds, and hook him. Survivors are just going to wait out the rest of that tier 3, because you've only got about, what, maybe 20 seconds left. If you've got no add-ons, if you've got Herbo, which has 30 seconds, they can still just wait that out and then unhook the guy before he reaches struggle. And that's the problem with Myers. He's just so easy to play around. Trapping him in tier 1, keeping him starved of stock so he doesn't have tier 3, looping him while he's in tier 3, hiding while he's in tier 3. Just so many. It's not like Oni, where if Oni can see you, he can down you. And if he runs Infectious, Oni can capitalize on Infectious. Myers with Infectious is pretty good. Even then, if he sees an Infectious proc, that survivor can run. If they just run when Myers is like 20 meters away, he will spend like 40 seconds just catching up to them. So that's why Myers isn't very good. He's sort of like a snowball killer, but without the actual power to snowball. Next is Legion, who I'm once again going to say is underrated. If you think Legion's the worst killer in the game, you just aren't playing all killers. The good thing about Legion is his power doesn't really have counterplay. The only problem with his power is he can't get the second hit, which you need to get yourself, which against decent survivors can take a while, but still, Legion can get some decent stuff. Like, he can chain a bunch of hits, he can get people mended and wasting their time, keeping them injured, which basically means you one-shot most of the match. So Legion's actually pretty solid. But like I said, like he does fall short. Once you get some survivors who can loop, like I said in this video, they will just take you in chases over and over while the other three are doing generators. There's really not much you can do if they get a strong setup, like a TL wall into a jungle gym with the windows pointing at each other. They will just loop you in that for over and over, and you can't get them, and then you'll end up losing. But at the same time, he's not that bad. Legion could do some decent stuff. He's short, so looping is easier. So that's always nice. Next is Wraith. Wraith just got a buff recently. He's not terrible. If you stick on 2 Windstorm add-ons, he's decent because that means you have solid mobility. You've got stealth, and with this extra speed coming out of your cloak, you can do some stuff at some loops. You can just like whip around the corner, and you can like glide along the side of a loop and get hit. He's still kind of weak, but he's not terrible now. He's like just below average. Starting B tier is Bubba. A lot of people put him way too high. I think he's incredibly overrated these days. But at the end of the day, he's still super easy to loop. A lot of people go on about how he just shreds through pallets, but this can actually be countered if you time it well. Assuming everyone has a decent connection, you can stun a Leatherface. What a lot of Leatherfaces do is they'll swing their chainsaw around the loop, force you to drop the pallet, and then immediately break it. But if you stun him, then he has to go through that stun and then break the pallet, and you get a ton of distance. So if survivors know the timing and how to stun you in that chainsaw frenzy, then your chases will be so long, you will be getting no downs, you've got no mobility, and you'll just get beat. B tier's Plague. Plague has a terrible early game like Myers and Trapper and all that. She has to start by trying to get everyone infected. Then she has to go chase as a normal killer. If they cleanse, you have to go way out your way to grab corrupt purges. But if luck's on your side, and let's say you get everyone infected, they're not cleansing, but your corrupt purge is in like the middle of the map, you can grab that on your way to a generator. Let's say you've Discordance and Infectious. Discordance goes off, you grab your corrupt on the way there, you down both those guys immediately. You got corrupt purge, let's say you've monitor and abuse as well. You down them instantly, you get an infectious another guy, you down him, and then you get an infectious another guy, you down him. All four down because they're all injured and you've got like an incredibly powerful ability. But there is quite a lot of luck to that, so you can't put Plague very high because that's not going to happen most games. Most games you're going to try and get everyone infected. It's going to take so long, your generators are going to be popping. You're going to get a bad corrupt. It's going to be way up in the corner of a house in Haddonfield. So you can't go grab it, and you're just a normal M1 killer. You're running around, you're tall as shit, you can't down anyone, and the generators are just going to fly because no one's healing, no one's wasting time. They're either being chased or they're doing a generator. So Plague just really falls short against decent loopers. Next is Ghostface. He's like Myers but way better. He's got the best stealth in the game, which is obviously just free hits. That's uncounterable. Ghostface is really tricky. You could be sitting there working a generator, the next thing you know you're exposed, and then he comes out of nowhere and hits you because you were 99th. You could be running for an unhook. Ghostface isn't even cloaked. You're planning on taking a hit and then doing a BT save. Ghostface cloaks immediately, exposes you, and then just insta-downs you. The good thing about Ghostface is he takes away information from survivors. They don't know where you are, they don't know if they've been stalked. Are they 99? Do they have no stalk? Are you in cloak? Are you right behind them? They don't know. But gens do go pretty fast against Ghostface because if survivors do end up spotting you a lot, then you will have to go through these cooldowns and you will have to reset, and survivors will end up just sort of rushing generators and get them all done in the end of the day. Next is Demogorgon. Now Demogorgon is getting like an add-on pass and hopefully a few base kit buffs soon, but as for now he's pretty underwhelming. Shred is definitely not that good in a chase. It can get you some decent hits at some loops, but a lot of loops you can't really use it, so you're kind of just forced to chase them normally. You're big as hell, so you're incredibly easy to see and chase. You're loud as hell. Survivors always know when you're chasing someone else. Your portals are incredibly annoying. You have to waste time setting them up. and then they can be just destroyed within a couple of seconds by one survivor. So Demogorgon's sort of like the jack of all trades, master of none. Like okay anti-loop and okay mobility, uh, no like shit stealth, okay tracking. He could use a couple of buffs. I think he has really good potential to be a good killer if they made that shred a lot stronger and they made his portals a lot stronger. He could actually be a really good killer, but he's just being held back by poor stats. Next is Blight. Now, Blight is really, really interesting on console. If this was PC, Blight would probably be above Freddy. He would definitely be in the A tier above Freddy. You go watch someone like Ascension on Twitch, and you will see how strong Blight is. I used to think Blight was trash in console and trash on PC. That's because I was watching True Talent and Scott John, who just made Blight look like maybe a B tier, maybe a low A tier killer. But you go watch Ascension or something like that, and you will see how strong Blight can be in PC, doing these 180s. He downs survivors within like 20 seconds every time, and he's flying about the map. It's insane. He makes Blight look super strong. Unfortunately, in console, you can't do this. On console, your turning is terrible. While you can't 180, you can barely turn that lunge at all. You're imprecise. Your frame rate is way lower. You can't like a lot of what he does is Blight is when he's about to bump on the wall, he will flick his camera to where he's going before he hits it, so he can immediately know where the survivor is before he even hits the wall. On console, I have to hit the wall, look for the survivor in that slam stage, and then go. But he can actually do that before he even bounces, which he wastes no time and gets hits. You can't do that on console. But that being said, on console you still have above average anti-loop and really good mobility, which puts him a high B killer. And in B tier's Twins. Twins are weak if you play nice and pretty strong if you play like a scumbag. Twins is all about, similar to Oni, it's all about the start of your game. How many survivors can you get injured fast? If you get people injured fast, then you can get Victor out and you can start downing people and get really good pressure. But if you don't get people injured and if they have like decent perks, if they have like whale mech and stuff like that, and they keep healing up fast, you're gonna have a really bad time. But like a good Twins will be able to beat good survivors because Victor is sort of like he's at the line where he's borderline uncounterable. Like Victor will get a good survivor down fast if it's a good Victor. But like I said, Twins sort of relies on people being injured. It relies on survivors not being very coordinated. But if they are coordinated, they will be able to beat you pretty easily. Starting out here's Hillbilly. It kind of sucks to see Hillbilly this low, but he is, and that's really bad. Hillbilly just doesn't have the pressure that you used to be able to build. Nowadays, when you're going around the map, you have to stop every now and again to let that chainsaw cool down. In a chase, you have to let it cool down. You don't have that insta saw anymore. You don't have crackbilly anymore. You can't get survivors down fast enough, and then you have to also you have to wait a while going down around the map. But if you are a good hillbilly and your map is decent, you can do pretty well. You know, at the end of the day, you still have decent anti-loop in some loops and some maps. You have about like really good mobility compared to some killers, and you have an insta down. So he's still pretty strong, but he's just so much weaker than he used to be, and it sucks. Next is Doctor. I've dropped Doctor quite a lot because he just isn't really as good as I thought he was, but he's still pretty damn strong. His anti-loop is above average. He's got, especially when you run Discipline and you can run the High Stimulus Electrode. When you combine those, his anti-loop is really, really strong. He can get you really fast. Even good survivors, he can get them super fast. He's also got a stall with Madness 3, you know, occasionally survivors have to snap out of it, and that can be annoying. He's got incredibly good tracking, the best in the game. He basically always knows where everyone is. He wants to find some people, static blast. He sees some illusions across the map. Okay, there's a survivor there, there's a survivor there. If you're Madness 3, you randomly scream. He's really good. but he doesn't have extra mobility, so he does sort of fall short when he can pressure the map. When survivors are splitting up, and he just can't pressure that well because he can't get them down fast enough to get a solid amount of pressure going. Next is Huntress. Huntress has great anti-loop. She can hit you from very far away, but here's where her problems lie in. Good survivors know how to play against Huntress and can really loop her for quite a lot of time. They will play around the fact that you have that wind up, and then they will, they'll drop pallets before you can even do a 50-50. They'll take corners really tight so that you can't get an angle on them. They'll use trees when they're running away from you so you can't hit them between loops. And it really sucks when survivors do that because your only power sort of is your fast chase, and when you can't do that, you can't get them down fast enough. Next is Hag, who I had at the 4th best last time. I just had some really bad games with Hag, and I'm seeing her weaknesses. A coordinated team just absolutely destroys that killer. Hag is really good for public lobbies because just most survivors are shit. The average survivor in Dead by Daylight is shite at the game, right? 90% of survivors are bad at games in general. Like Dead by Daylight players are just shit at the game. Most killers are shit at the game. Most survivors are shit at the game. But when you get good survivors, they show how bullyable Hag really is. But for most teams, she is really strong. And even against good teams, she can do well. But it's against those really, really good teams, she gets absolutely stomped. Like, you might as well be playing clown. She's got good lethality. If her traps align, but she has to set up. She has no extra mobility to get to generator she wants to. So at the end of the day, it's still pretty easy to beat a Hag if you're coordinated. Next is Executioner, who you might notice is up really high. I've been really liking Executioner these days. His strengths, he's really good at loops. He can get you super fast. Those cages, he can, you can save up some final judgments. You could just get people out of the game super fast. I can find a guy, hook him, find him maybe 2 minutes later, hook him again, and then find him 30 seconds after he's unhooked and just final judgment. That man's out of the game in like 3 minutes. Executioner's really good at what killers need to do. Killers need to ideally have a survivor dead before there's one gen left. You want someone dead when there's about 2 generators left. Executioner is pretty good at doing that because his chases are generally fast, and that torment allows you to get basically a free hook stage without having to worry about DS, without having to carry them and shit like that. You can just hook them, cage them, and forget about them. He falls short when survivors know how to counter him. How to counter him in chase is basically just throwing pallets when you know he can get you in a 50-50 the next loop. Blocking line of sight is good against him, and the main thing is just running early. Against Executioner, if survivors just start running when you're like maybe 20 meters away, you will never catch them because you can't afford to chase them. And that's when Executioner loses because he gets you at loops. He can't get you outside of loops, he gets you at loops. And so if a survivor runs, then they're not at a loop, but they're wasting your time. So then he just completely loses when all 4 survivors do that. He can't do anything about that. And the next is Death Slinger. Now so many people are going to disagree with this. People are actually going to be looking at me like I'm insane. Most people would put Death Slinger around like twins. But I'll tell you why I put Death Slinger so high. Death Slinger has probably one of the best chases in the game, if not the best chase in the game. His chases, even against you can get a good survivor down so fast. Monitor abuse, you've got a 16-meter tear radius, you can sneak up on a guy, immediately hit him, and immediately shoot him, and you've got a good survivor down in about 10 seconds. He can do that. You get to a loop, he's just going to shoot you at the loop, and he's going to raid you in and hit you. A good Death Slinger, if he hits his shots, he's going to hit you, he's going to raid you in, and he's going to just down you so fast every time. You can't say running early works against him, I'll tell you why. 60-meter tear radius with monitor abuse, 18-meter spear gun. By the time you see him and start running, he already has a shot on you, meaning you can't waste his time by running away. If you spine shell, he can always, and this is another thing I forgot to mention with spine shell, as killers, look to the side look at a 90-degree angle when you're walking to a generator, and then turn when you're roughly within your tear radius. And then so a survivor with spine chill is going to be expecting spine chill, and if they don't see it, and it's going to pop up when you're like maybe 18 meters away, and then they're going to think you're 36 meters away, but then you're right on top of them. This singer is so strong. He can get you down super fast. He can he doesn't have to worry about you running early because you can't run early unless you see him coming from a distance, which is not always going to happen. However, he does lose when survivors just do really well in generators. When all three of them are splitting up in generators and doing them super fast, you do lose games as like that's how you lose. But you can occasionally snowball those games as well. Ending A tier is Freddy Krueger. Now, I think he is getting nerfed, and I think this nerf, even if it's not that much, I think that will definitely put him probably below Hag. Because I think arguably, Freddy isn't as good as Death Singer or Executioner. I think actually most people, this Freddy, Executioner, Death Singer, and Hag and Hunters, I think these can all be flip flopped to any order. But I think most of the time this is going to be the order that they should be in. But I think Freddy Krueger's pretty strong. But there are some downsides to him. Awake survivors, you have no power in a chase. Asleep survivors, with snares, you do have pretty decent chase, but it's not that good. It's like clown but better. But then you also have the teleport, which is very good for getting to generators, and you have the slowdown, and you have what else? Freddy has got. Oh yeah, you slowed people down when they go to wake up. You know they have to waste time doing that. So overall, you do get very good pressure. I'm just putting him above Death Singer for now because I'm going to assume these survivors that we're going against during this tier list aren't that good. They're all solos, but they're good solos. Against some really good loopers and survivors who know what they're doing, I actually think Death Singer is probably going to be above Freddy. But this is why I think Freddy's going to get nerfed so that solo survivors uh, just don't really need to play well to beat him. So this is going to make him pretty bad because it's going to mean more and more teams can end up beating Freddy. So he's just going to drop in the tier list. So I think for now I'm going to put him above Death Singer, but any nerf he's getting, he's definitely going to drop quite a lot. Now S tier, I put Oni in S tier this time. I usually put him at A tier, but I'm actually going to put him S this because I think he is with Top Knot better than Spirit. And I'm going to say that like it's going to be a little bit weird, but I think he's better than Spirit with Top Knot. But you're not going to have Top Knot every game, so I'm going to put him below Spirit. But with Top Knot, I actually think he's better than Spirit because he can build so much pressure, he can down you so fast. You know, if he gets these hits at the start of the game, he can really do well, and like he's basically guaranteed to win if he gets a good start. You know, that's what I think is very good about Oni, is if you get a good start, you will basically win every game. You know, if you can get two survivors injured within like maybe 45, maybe 1 minute of the game, you're basically going to win because you can get your ability early and you can just keep downing and downing and downing, and the survivors will get no time to get back on their feet and you will just win. And that's what's so good about Oni. He just wins. He's very strong. But like I said, it depends on the start you get. If you get a bad start, you actually might lose. Next is Spirit. Spirit is basically just really good chase, but better mobility. Death Singer has a better chase than Spirit, but Spirit's got better mobility than Death Singer, so you trade a little bit of lethality for mobility, but it works out for Spirit because she's just better, you know. She just gets that really good chase, but she's also got extra mobility on top of that. I definitely think any nerfs to Spirit could put Oni above her, like permanently, because Spirit at the minute is just sort of has a good mix between lethality and mobility. But then we got Nurse at the top, who's basically just the same as Spirit, but has better lethality and better mobility than her. She can get around better and she can down people faster. That seems to be a pattern with the top killers. It's just like a good mix between the two. You know, Deathslinger is all lethality, but he's got really good lethality, so that makes him really good. And you got Spirit and Nurse, who've got a good mix of the both, which make them really strong. So that's my tier list. If you disagree, let me know. Make sure you watch the whole video before you disagree, because you might have missed something that was pretty important. But that's it for now. Any nerfs and buffs could change this quite a lot, because at the minute a lot of killers are very volatile. But I think I'm pretty satisfied with this for the minute. So thanks for watching.